And the Korean War was a real, a real war. It becomes irregular warfare that we are discussing today. For example, if your enemy is strong, then you pretend to be sick. Okay, hold hands and then they cross the border together.
Okay, hello Visiptarian, welcome to the podcast. Okay, this is a special edition podcast because it will discuss issues that are very relevant in international relations student. Previously, I'm Farah from International Relations. Of course, I'm not alone. I'm with my favorite lecturer, Secretary of International Relations, who will review this topic. He is Mr. Nur Lutfi Hidayatullah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, guys, this topic is very interesting because we will discuss the Korean Cyber War. Maybe before we discuss is further, let's first discuss the background of the Korean ceasefire war that occurred in 1953, so it can be explained more deeply by Mr. Lutfi.
Okay, thank you so much for having me in this podcast. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi washabihi ajma'in. So, first of all, I would like to thank the Dean of FISIP WINSA, the management team, and also the FISIP media team for organizing the very first English podcast in FISIP WINSA. Okay, let's get back to the topic. So, the background of the conflict between the North and the South Korea started in 1950 until 1953. We call it the Korean War. Okay, if you check the past history, the two countries were united. They were the same kingdom with the same culture and also with the same language and alphabet also, the Hangul, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And later on, during the Cold War, they were split into two ideologies, liberal democracy and also socialist communists. And due to the different ideology, they are split in two different states. And the Korean War was a real, a real war.
Real war.
In the sense that, the two parties attack each other militarily. One was backed up by the United States. The other one was backed up by the Soviet Union. Until the point that they decided, we need to put an end to the fighting, not to the war, but to the fighting.
Okay.
You call it ceasefire. And they've decided to draw a line, and it's called the 38th parallel. And ever since 1953, we do not see any real wars going on. It becomes irregular warfare that we are discussing today.
Okay. Let's talk about background Korean ceasefire war in 1953.
Well, the ceasefire, if I'm not mistaken, it was organized by the United Nations, and then the two countries agreed for a temporary ceasefire, meaning we stop attacking each other, but it doesn't mean the war is officially over. And because it's not officially over, both countries still upgrade their military capability, whether it's the troops, whether it's the weapons, their cooperation. But things changed a little bit during the end of the Cold War, when the Soviet Union collapsed, and North Korea will have to rely on its own efforts to protect its territorial boundaries. So they started this nuclear project because the Soviet already collapsed. Yeah, so far it's like that.
So far it's like that. Okay. So what's the theoretic can be related in cyber in Korean?
Cyber, it's a part of irregular warfare. Okay, if we previously talked about regular warfare, which happens during the Korean War, 1950 until 1953, irregular warfare actually happened afterwards. Okay, yes, it did happen several times during the Korean War, but more intensively afterwards. Irregular warfare is a method, a war strategy, using unconventional means, besides from weapons.
Okay.
And the point is to attack your enemy where they where they are least prepared. Where they are least prepared. If you talk about irregular warfare strategy, just like what has been used in Vietnam War, and then other guerrilla wars, right? Theoretically, if you talk about Sun Tzu's Art of War, he actually set several principles which might be useful in understanding irregular warfare. For example, if your enemy is strong, then you pretend to be sick. Okay, and then try to lower the morale of your enemy. For example, by attacking their capital, by attacking their food supply. And what the Koreans actually did was somewhat similar. Okay, maybe we can dig into it in the next question.
Okay, guys. Well, next question. That what about Korea's effort to position itself a middle power country after war, and also that meeting between Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in in 2018. This currently makes the discussion between South Korea and North Korea in the eyes of international issues. It's really, really interesting.
Okay, so we move on to the first perspective of the South Koreans first. Okay, so South Korea turned out to become a democratic state, and also having perhaps strategic partnership even with the United States of America. A lot of American presidents have visited South Korea, not only visiting but giving military support in the forms of weapons, joint military practice, and also South Korea becomes a middle power, meaning they are active in promoting international issues outside of their region. However, inside of their own region, it's quite difficult for South Korea to survive because of the threat of the nuclear testing coming from the North Korean side. So what do they have to do? They started this sunshine policy. Okay, sunshine policy was around 2000s, and several South Korean presidents have already talked about how South Korea should become the bridge between North Korea and the U.S. Because North Korea's propaganda shows that the U.S. remains a threat. We cannot live without fear unless the U.S. can be attacked, using their long-range missiles. So what they do is, South Korea wanted to become the bridge between the two. So if North Korea needs to communicate with the U.S. and vice versa, South Korea becomes the mediator.
Yes.
Okay, this is sunshine policy. And finally, the meeting between Moon Jae-in and Kim Jong-un. This is also very significant in changing the course of the relations between the two countries. If you remember Donald Trump's first, period of presidency, he actually was very interested in dismantling the nuclear project of North Korea. And on the other hand, Moon Jae-in was more into engaging in dialogue with North Korea so that they can become a united Korea once more. Okay, and it was quite successful to a certain extent, to the point that there is this little village, I forgot the name, between the two countries, where both leaders of the Koreas, they, hold hands and then they cross the border together. And this meeting was significant in a sense that people start to believe, perhaps South Korea and North Korea could become united once more. And if they do, guess what kind of country they will become? Perhaps a superpower with a strong military and economy and pop culture at the same time. Okay, but are things like that now? Knowing that we have the psychological warfare, okay, maybe we move on to the next question.
Okay. Okay, guys, this is good discussion for you in international relations student. Okay, why is North Korea so focused on self-defense strategy? And so, how does the cyber continue until South Korea and balance to North Korea and trust from North Korea return?
Okay, so if we get back to my previous point, in the collapse of the Soviet Union, so North Korea can no longer rely on the great power of the region. It is just recently that North Korea and Russia reconnected.
Yes.
But before that, after the collapse of Soviet Union, North Korea was on its own. They cannot do defense against themselves, against their enemy. Moreover, they were severely damaged economically by lots of by lots of sanction. So it's like there are 8 until several other sanctions specifically for North Korea, to the point that their economy cannot function well.
Yes.
If North Korea wants to do free trade, their shipping vessels will be blocked. It could be blocked by Japan, by South Korea, or even by the US, and this was a part of the sanction in order for North Korea to dismantle or to stop their nuclear project. But did they ever stop? No. They kept on growing
never.
it. Yes. Their economy is still perfectly functional in a sense that they can still export to limited number of countries, especially China, although not that profitable, because most of the North Korean budget is allocated for military defense. Okay, and then if the question is why do they do that, I think an interesting point was noted. There are some sources online talk about how nuclear is used as deterrence.
Yes.
Do you know deterrence?
Deterrence.
Yes.
It's defense, self-defense strategy.
Self-defense
Yes.
strategy. So you don't really use the nuclear to attack certain targets. North Korea never done that. If they do missile launch or testing, it's usually to the ocean, not to certain countries. They know their limit, right? They know their limit. But also they want others to know what we are capable of, but what we choose not to do yet.
Okay.
Okay, so so it's like that. They use it as a defense mechanism.
Okay. Next question about the currently makes North Korea intrinsically distant from South Korea and the United States, and actually closer to Russia.
Okay. By the way, we haven't really talked about the actual Psy war yet.
Yes.
Because this is what changes the course. Last time we've talked about the two Koreas which almost united right after Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in's meeting.
Yeah.
And also their united Korean team in the Winter Olympics, which was very interesting with a flag showing the map of both Koreas united. But the Psy war actually becomes a problem. Okay, if you see the Psy war, how did it started? How was it started? In the current days, some organizations in South Korea actually sent balloons, telling stories in the balloons about how nice life is in South Korea. Sometimes they also send pop culture products. They also sell some. They also send some chocolate. Things that might. Is it too much if I call it promoting the Korean dream?
Yeah, it's really.
Korean dream, like American dream.
Yes, like American dream.
The same way Mexicans would like to cross the border to go to the U.S. They want to make North Koreans cross the border to go. Come to South Korea for a better economic welfare, perhaps. Okay, so this is the psychological war. And also some speakers were placed in the border, the 38th parallel, blasting K-pop music, which was disturbing for North Korea on purpose. So North Korea retaliated by sending rubbish, sending trash balloons at South Korea, stating that no, we don't need your balloons. We don't need your distractions. And there is something even more. Just recently, Kim Jong-un decided to destroy the reunification monument. Okay, so if you look at the border, there are a couple of roads linking the two Koreas, but it is blockaded by some barbed wires and electric fence.
Yes.
And now those roads are destroyed in the North Korean side, so you cannot go across it. And secondly, the reunification monument that has the symbol of the two countries' maps united, it's also been destroyed by North Korea. So it shows a clear stance that it seems like North Korea is getting very disturbed, very disturbed by South Korean balloon. And is there any other questions, Satsis?
This is a last topic about Korean cyber, but I want to see you about this a pic. This is a cyber in 1915, 22 July. What do you think about this picture, Mr.?
Okay, maybe you can show it to
Yes,
the
you can show
audience.
guys.
Okay, those pictures, if you look at the graphics, they are very old-fashioned, in the times of those Cold War, perhaps. And it kind of criticized the ideology, mostly the ideology of not specifically North Korea, but communism as a whole. So it criticizes communism, how it restrains the people's freedom of movement, freedom of development, and it's kind of trying to give an alternative, I think, an alternative to the people, telling them you have a choice, actually. If you want to make your own choices, come to South Korea, we'll provide you with what you need.
This is propaganda in 1915.
Okay, and I think the future, what does the future hold for the two countries?
Okay, guys, this is very interesting topic about Korea and all its dynamics about Korean cyber, and
I haven't answered about the future.
answer.
Yeah, I haven't answered.
Okay.
Okay, so it seems like as South Korea is strengthening its strategic partnership with the U.S., now recently North Korea is also getting engaged with Russia.
Yes. Okay, guys, this is very interesting topic about Korean all dynamics, really big in Korean cyber. And this is do you want to talk about Korean is a better years in the next?
Okay, and replying to your question regarding what do I hope, perhaps, for the two Koreas.
Yes.
Well, I do not want to intervene too much in their domestic affairs.
Yes.
Being an Indonesian, we believe that every country have their right to determine their own political system and also foreign policy independently with their own pros and cons, of course. So I'll just give you a general statement, perhaps from Indonesia's point of view. The fact that we can learn from the history. What can we learn from the two Koreas right now? The fact that the two Koreas share the same history, being in the same kingdom, and they were used to becoming middle powers since then.
Yes.
Because the Ming and Qing dynasty of China, and also the shogunate government of Japan, they were rivals between each other. And if the Korean Goryeo kingdom did not maintain good relations between the two, the war would take place in their territory. And it seems like the two Koreas inherit the same spirit today, meaning that both North Korea and South Korea, they know how to survive. That's number one. The difference is that they choose their different paths, but they remain related emotionally and also culturally. And they share the same history, but I think it's up to them if they want to share the same future or not.
Yes.
I guess that's the
Okay,
closing
guys.
statement.
Thank you, Mr. Lutfi.
Okay,
Provide
you're
some
welcome.
great insight regarding Cyber Korea. And thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And goodbye.
Okay.